Liam loves surprises. After 10 years of marriage, she still believes small gestures kept love alive. That Friday afternoon, she packed a paper bag with sandwiches from Daniel's favorite deli and drove to his office. The summer sun was bright, the air warm, and she felt a kind of playful excitement, like she was dating again. Daniel had been stressed lately, working late hours, and she thought a simple lunch would lift his spirits. When she walked into the building, the receptionist greeted her with a smile. Everyone knew she was Daniel's wife. Liam waved politely, then followed the familiar hallway toward the break room. She pictured Daniel's face lighting up when he saw her, almost hearing him laugh and say, "You didn't have to. Love, but I'm glad you did." But just as she neared the door, her steps slowed. Voices floated out low but clear. Two women were talking, their tones sharp in a way that made Liam pause. She hadn't meant to listen, yet something inside her told her to stay still. Daniel doesn't even realize how lucky he is," one voice said. It was light teasing but carried a harsh edge. "If I were his wife, I'd never let him out of my sight." Liam's heart gave a sudden thump. Her fingers tightened around the paper bag. Another voice answered, softer but firm. "I know Liam doesn't appreciate him the way she should." Daniel deserves someone who really sees him. The bag crinkled in Liam's hand. The air seemed heavier, pressing against her chest. For a second she thought, maybe I misheard. But no, the words were clear, echoing in her ears. She doesn't appreciate him. He deserves more. Liam's stomach turned. She recognized one of the voices, Claire, Daniel's coworker. Claire was younger, bold, always smiling too brightly whenever Daniel was around. Liam had noticed it before. The way Claire leaned in during conversations, how her hand brushed his arm as if by accident. Daniel never seemed to notice, but Liam did. She always told herself she was being silly, that Daniel was loyal, that Claire was harmless. But now, hearing her like this, Liam felt her chest tighten with something sharp and hot. The women laughed, a sound that made Liam's skin prickle. She imagined them sitting at the small round table sipping coffee, speaking as though Daniel's wife wasn't real. Liam's mind raced. Should she step inside, show her face, let them know she heard? Should she storm in and defend herself, defend her marriage? Or should she walk away and pretend none of it reached her ears? Her heart pounded so loud she feared they would hear it. She leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes for a moment. Doubt crept in quickly, sharp and unkind. Did she really not appreciate Daniel enough? Lately, she'd been tired, busy with the house, distracted by bills and errands. Sometimes she forgot to kiss him goodnight. Sometimes she fell asleep before he came to bed. Was that what they saw? Did Claire see him more clearly than she did? Liam opened her eyes, staring at the dull hallway light. She felt like a stranger in her own life, standing outside a door where the truth had just been whispered without her consent. The sound of footsteps made her flinch. She quickly stepped back, adjusting the bag in her hand, trying to look natural. A man from another office passed without noticing her. Liam's pulse slowed slightly, but the damage was done. She had heard too much to ignore. Inside the break room, the women's voices lowered again, drifting into something about the project deadline. But Liam no longer cared about the details. All she could think about was Claire's voice, saying, "Daniel deserves someone else, her husband." Liam finally took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The two women looked up, startled. Claire's eyes widened for a second before she smiled, as if nothing had happened. The other woman gave a polite nod. "Liam," Claire said brightly, her voice a shade too cheerful. What a surprise. Liam forced her lips into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I thought I'd bring Daniel lunch." She placed the bag on the counter, her movements calm, though her hands trembled inside. Claire tilted her head. "That's sweet of you. He's in his office. He'll be happy to see you." Liam nodded, keeping her expression smooth, hiding the storm beneath her ribs. She didn't trust herself to speak more. She walked down the hall, every step heavy, her shoes echoing louder than usual. She felt Claire's eyes on her back, sharp and knowing, and it made her skin crawl. When she reached Daniel's office, she paused at the door, trying to gather herself. She couldn't walk in looking shaken. Daniel would notice. He always noticed. And she wasn't ready to tell him what she'd heard. Not yet. She knocked lightly. Daniel looked up, surprise flashing across his tired face before melting into a warm smile. "Liam, what are you doing here?" Her heart squeezed painfully at the sight of him. His smile was genuine, full of love, the same smile he'd given her for years. For a moment, she wanted to forget everything and just fall into his arms. "I brought lunch," she said softly, setting the bag on his desk. Daniel's eyes lit up. "You didn't have to, love, but I'm glad you did." He stood and kissed her cheek, his hand lingering on her arm in that gentle way that always made her feel safe. Liam smiled back, but inside her world was cracking. She sat with him while he opened the sandwiches, laughing as he teased her for always remembering the extra pickles. She watched him eat, listened to him talk about the new project, nodded at all the right places. From the outside, everything seemed normal, but Liam's mind wasn't quiet. Behind every laugh, every bite, the words lingered. She doesn't appreciate him. He deserves someone else. By the time she left his office, Daniel kissed her again and thanked her, his eyes full of affection. Liam walked back to her car, her body moving automatically, her face calm for the world to see. But inside, she was torn apart. The woman who shared her husband's daily life had said something Liam couldn't erase. And though Daniel's smile had warmed her heart, doubt had already slipped in, whispering louder than she wanted to admit. As she sat in the car, staring at the steering wheel, Liam knew one thing: nothing would ever feel the same again. That night, Daniel came home carrying his usual tired smile. He set his briefcase by the door, loosened his tie, and kissed Liam's forehead as he always did. To him, the evening was normal. To Liam, it wasn't. Her mind was still filled with Claire's voice from the break room. Every smile from Daniel felt precious but also fragile, as if someone else could take it away. They sat down to dinner. Daniel talked about work, about meetings and deadlines. Liam nodded, but her mind wandered. She kept hearing Claire. Liam doesn't appreciate him the way she should. The words stung sharper now that she sat across from him, watching his tired eyes. Was it true? She thought about the last few months. Daniel had been working late, often coming home long after she had gone to bed. She used to wait for him, but lately exhaustion made her fall asleep before he walked through the door. She used to kiss him first thing in the morning. But some days she rushed to check her phone, or get ready instead. She had stopped noticing the little things. The way he rubbed his temples after long meetings. The way his shoulders slumped when he was carrying too much. Claire's words dug deeper. Did Daniel feel unseen? Did he come to work each day only to find a woman who noticed what Liam missed? Liam studied him closely, the way he held his fork, the faint lines at the corners of his mouth, the softness in his gaze when he looked at her. She still loved him. She could see that clearly, but what if love wasn't enough? What if attention, care, and presence were what he needed most, and she had let them slip? She forced a smile when he asked about her day. It was fine, she said softly, quieter than usual. Daniel tilted his head. You okay? You seem a little quiet. Her chest tightened. She wanted to tell him everything about Claire, about the cruel words whispered behind her back, but she couldn't. She wasn't ready to sound insecure, to sound jealous. She wasn't sure if telling him would make her appear small or make Claire seem dangerous, so she lied. Just tired. That's all. Daniel reached across the table and squeezed her hand. His thumb brushed gently against her skin like he always did when he wanted to reassure her. Liam felt warmth, but underneath the storm churned. At night in bed, Daniel fell asleep quickly. Liam lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. Her mind spun faster than the ceiling fan. She thought about their early years when they couldn't stop talking, when every evening felt like an adventure. She remembered surprising him with silly notes in his lunchbox, how he used to bring her flowers just because. They hadn't done those things in a long time. Life had become ordinary, predictable. Had routine made her blind? Had she become the kind of wife who loved quietly but forgot to show it? Claire's voice whispered again in her ear. He deserves someone who really sees him. The thought made her restless. She turned onto her side, watching Daniel sleep. His face looked peaceful, almost boyish without the tension of the day. She loved this man more than anything, but suddenly she wasn't sure if he knew it. The next morning, Liam tried harder. She made his coffee just the way he liked it, with a touch of cinnamon, and kissed him goodbye at the door. Daniel smiled, surprised but pleased. Thanks, love, he said warmly. For a brief moment, Liam felt hope. Maybe she could prove to him and to herself that she still cherished him. But later, while folding laundry, her mind slipped back to Claire. The way she had leaned on Daniel's desk laughing, the look in her eyes when Liam walked into the break room. It wasn't just a coworker's interest, It was hunger. Claire wanted something she had no right to want. The thought made Liam's stomach knot. Was Daniel too kind to notice? Too polite to push her away? He was friendly with everyone, warm and approachable. That kindness was one of the reasons Liam had fallen in love with him. But what if that same kindness made him blind to someone else's intentions? Over the next few days, Liam watched him differently. Every detail mattered now. The way he smiled at his phone, the way he answered texts, the way he mentioned coworkers. When he said Claire's name in passing, Liam's heart skipped. He didn't linger on it or act suspicious, but the name itself was enough to sting. One evening, Daniel came home later than usual. Liam had waited up for him, something she hadn't done in weeks. When he walked through the door, his eyes lit up. She nodded, trying to sound casual. I wanted to see you. He grinned, leaned down, and kissed her forehead. I missed you today. Her chest warmed at his words, but underneath a questioned nod. Does he say that to Claire? Does she hear his laughter at work the way I used to hear it at home? She hated herself for thinking that way. But the thought wouldn't leave. The next weekend, they went grocery shopping together. It should have been ordinary, but Liam felt tense. While they walked through the aisles, Daniel stopped to greet a coworker he ran into. It wasn't Claire, just another man from the office. Still, Liam found herself scanning the crowd, half expecting to see her. The fear of running into Claire outside Daniel's office made Liam's heart race. That night after dinner, Daniel sat on the couch with his laptop, working again. Liam curled beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. He kissed her hair absent-mindedly while typing. It should have been comforting, but Liam felt the distance anyway. He was here, yet his mind was elsewhere. She whispered softly, Do you ever feel like I don't appreciate you enough? Daniel stopped typing and turned to her, brows raised. What? Where's this coming from? She forced a smile, trying to make it sound like a joke. Just wondering. He set his laptop aside and pulled her into his arms. Liam, you're everything to me. You don't have to worry about that. She wanted to believe him, but she wanted his words to erase every doubt. She leaned into his chest, closing her eyes, pretending the storm inside her wasn't there. But Claire's voice lingered like a shadow in the corner of the room. Days turned into weeks, and the unease grew heavier. Liam kept up her small gestures. Coffee, kisses, waiting for him at night. But instead of feeling secure, she felt like she was competing with a ghost. She didn't know if Claire was still talking about Daniel behind closed doors, or if Daniel even noticed her interest. But the possibility was enough to twist Liam's world. Her love for Daniel hadn't changed. But now every laugh, every glance, every touch came with a question mark. Was she enough? Did he know how much she loved him? And if he didn't, would someone else be ready to take her place? As Liam lay awake one more night, listening to Daniel breathe beside her, she knew something had shifted inside her. Their marriage wasn't broken, but doubt had entered their walls. And once doubt came in, love could no longer rest as peacefully as before. Liam tried to push away the unease, but it grew stronger every day. She told herself she was imagining things, that Claire's words had just gotten under her skin too deeply. But the image of Claire leaning close to Daniel, laughing at his desk, returned again and again. She couldn't ignore it anymore. One Wednesday morning, Daniel rushed out, forgetting his jacket on the chair. Liam picked it up later, holding it in her hands longer than she needed to. The faint scent of his cologne lingered. It gave her an idea. She would bring the jacket to his office. She told herself it was practical, but deep down, she knew it was more than that. She wanted to see. She needed to see. The office building felt colder this time. The receptionist smiled as always, but Liam barely noticed. Her pulse was quick, her grip tight on the jacket as she walked toward Daniel's floor. The hallway stretched ahead, long and quiet, yet her chest felt heavy, like she was walking into something she wasn't ready for, sore. When she turned the corner, she saw it instantly. Daniel was at his desk, leaning slightly forward, smiling as he explained something. And there she was, Claire. She sat on the edge of his desk, close enough that their knees almost touched. Her laugh rang out, light and soft, and she twirled a strand of her hair like a teenager. Liam stopped in her tracks. She stood there for a moment, half hidden by the corner, watching them. Her heart pounded so hard, felt like it might break her ribs. Daniel looked so relaxed, so open, and Claire's eyes never left his face. Liam forced herself forward, each step steady, though her legs felt weak. Daniel looked up the second she entered. His face lit up in genuine surprise, the kind that always warmed her heart. Oh, what are you doing here? She held up the jacket, her voice calm though her hands trembled inside. You forgot this. Claire's smile faltered for a second. Then she straightened, sliding off the desk. Hi, Liam. We were just talking about the project deadline. Liam glanced at her briefly, her polite smile, then turned back to Daniel. His eyes were only on her, his smile wide. He took the jacket from her hands and brushed her fingers in the process. That simple touch grounded her, a reminder of their bond, but the sting in her chest didn't fade. Thanks, love, Daniel said warmly. You're a lifesaver, Liam nodded. I didn't want you to be cold. Claire crossed her arms, eyes flickering between them. There was something unspoken in her gaze, sharp like a challenge wrapped in a smile. I was just telling him about how busy things have been. Oh, he's such a hard worker. Liam met her eyes this time, steady and calm. Yes, she said softly but firmly. I know he is. For a moment, silence pressed between them. Claire's smile stayed, but her eyes narrowed, and Liam felt the weight of something hidden behind them. He seemed so happy she was there, so comfortable, as if nothing strange had happened. Why don't we grab lunch together? He suggested. I'll take a break. Liam smiled at him, grateful for the offer, though her stomach twisted too tightly to eat. Maybe another time. I just wanted to drop this off. Claire stepped back, giving a little wave. Well, I'll let you two talk. I should get back to my desk anyway. Her tone was light, but her eyes lingered on Daniel for a second too long before she turned and walked away. Liam watched her leave, heartbeat fast. Even the way Claire walked carried confidence like she belonged everywhere she went. Daniel squeezed Liam's hand. Thanks again for bringing this. You didn't have to, but it means a lot. She smiled at him, but it felt forced. She wanted to ask if he noticed how Claire looked at him, if he realized how dangerous her closeness was, but she stayed quiet, not ready for that conversation. Not yet. They talked for a few more minutes. Small things. Safe things. Then Liam kissed his cheek, said goodbye, and walked out of the building. Her steps were steady, but her chest burned. Outside, the cool air hit her face, and she stopped for a moment, gripping the strap of her bag. She could still see Claire's smile, the way she perched on Daniel's desk as if she belonged there. She could still feel the silence between them, heavy and loaded, when their eyes met. Liam told herself Daniel hadn't done anything wrong. He was innocent, kind. He had looked at her with love, held her hand in front of Claire, kissed her cheek without hesitation. He wasn't hiding, wasn't guilty. But Claire was not innocent. Claire's eyes had said everything words couldn't. She wanted Daniel, and she wasn't afraid to let Liam see it. That realization shook Liam deeply. It wasn't just whispers behind her back anymore. It was an open, unspoken rivalry. For the first time, Liam felt the threat not as a passing worry, but something real. On the drive home, her thoughts raced. Should she confront Daniel and tell him what she'd seen? Should she warn him about Claire? Or would that only make her look insecure, jealous, unreasonable? Daniel trusted her. He would never betray her. But Claire was playing a dangerous game. Liam gripped the steering wheel tighter. She thought about years of love, laughter, quiet nights, the history they had built. No one had the right to step between that. Not Claire, not anyone. But Liam also knew love wasn't something you could protect by staying silent. Silence was dangerous. It let doubts grow. It gave room for others to slip in. As much as she wanted to pretend everything was fine, she couldn't shake the image of Claire's eyes on Daniel. That night, Daniel came home tired again. He greeted her warmly, kissed her forehead, told her about his day. Liam listened, nodding, smiling where she should. But part of her mind was somewhere else, replaying that scene in his office. When he mentioned Claire briefly, only as part of a group working late, Liam's chest tightened. His voice was casual, harmless, but Liam couldn't forget how Claire had sat so close to him. She tucked those thoughts away, hiding them behind her smile, but her heart felt heavier than ever. As Daniel fell asleep beside her, Liam lay awake again, staring into the dark. Would she trust Daniel blindly, or fight to make sure no one else ever had the chance to take her place? The answer wasn't clear yet, but the moment in that office had changed everything. Claire wasn't just a whisper in the break room anymore. She was a threat standing in plain sight. Liam could no longer pretend otherwise. The following week, Liam's tension grew like a shadow she couldn't shake. She tried focusing on work, household chores, even on Daniel. But her mind kept returning to that moment in his office. Claire's presence felt bigger than ever, though she was nowhere in sight. It wasn't just jealousy, it was fear. Fear of losing the man she loved. Fear of losing the bond they had built over years. Liam decided she needed answers. She couldn't keep living in this quiet panic, waiting for something she couldn't predict. She started paying closer attention to Daniel's routines. Work calls, time spent on emails, even the tone of his voice when he mentioned coworkers. She noticed subtle things she had overlooked, the extra long pause before he responded to certain messages, the occasional sigh when he talked about meetings, the faint smile that seemed meant for no one but someone else. One Friday evening, Liam followed Daniel after he said he had to attend a late meeting downtown. She didn't drive recklessly, but her heart pounded in her chest like a drum. The streetlights glinted off the pavement as she saw his car parked outside a small cafe on the edge of the city. Her stomach twisted as she parked across the street. Daniel stepped inside. Liam waited, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. A few minutes later, Claire appeared casually, as if she owned the place. They were talking, laughing softly, leaning toward each other. Even from this distance, Liam could see Claire's hand brush Daniel's arm lightly. Liam felt the world tilt. She wanted to scream, run in, demand explanations, but instead stayed hidden, silent, trembling. She reminded herself Daniel had no idea she was here. Claire's boldness only made it worse. For hours, she sat in her car, watching them leave together, sharing coffee and stepping out under the same streetlights. Daniel's hand brushed Claire's as they walked. Liam's chest tightened so painfully she had to take a deep breath, trying not to cry. When Daniel finally drove home, Liam waited until he was inside before getting out of her car. The sight of him laughing so openly, warmly with someone else, haunted her. She wanted to confront him immediately, but knew she had to calm herself first. Anger wouldn't solve this. Fear wouldn't solve this. Only clarity could. The next morning, she decided to talk to him. She waited until they were alone in the kitchen, coffee brewing between them. Daniel seemed cheerful, completely unaware of the storm swirling inside her. Daniel, she said softly. He turned, eyebrows raised. Can we talk? Of course, he replied, setting down his mug. Yeah. What's wrong? Liam's hands trembled slightly, but she forced her voice steady. It's about Claire. Daniel frowned, but there was no defensiveness, only curiosity. What about her? Liam took a deep breath. I know she's at work with you all the time. Yeah, he interacts with you, and I need to know where we stand. Daniel blinked, processing. Liam, Claire is just a coworker. That's all. We work on projects together. That's it. You know that. Liam wanted to believe him, and part of her did. But there was a part that had seen Claire's attention, her teasing, the way she leaned in, the way she laughed like Daniel's happiness depended on her. Are you sure? Because I've seen things. You want to believe you, she whispered. Yeah, I really do, but I can't shake the feeling that she's trying to take something from me. Daniel pulled her into his arms, hugging her tightly. Liam, look at me. You're the only one, always. I love you. There is nothing to worry about. I promise. That weekend, Liam and Daniel took a long walk along the river. The sky painted in soft oranges and purples as the sun set. They held hands, the familiar warmth comforting. Yet Liam felt a new sense of awareness. She knew challenges would come. Doubts might rise again. As Claire walked away, Liam returned to Daniel, who was waiting with a smile. He took her hand and leaned close. Everything okay? He asked quietly. Liam nodded, chest swelling with relief. Yes, better than okay. We're okay. Stronger than ever. Daniel pulled her into a gentle embrace. And in that moment, with Daniel's hand resting over hers, she felt invincible. The city became a distant memory, replaced by open roads, laughter, and the quiet promise of shared dreams. Liam leaned against Daniel, their hearts beating in unison. I'm glad we faced everything, she whispered.